for me, I transitioned well over 15 years ago. And so at that time, there was little to no mainstream trans visibility. And so, I was at an age where finding a better understanding of myself oftentimes depended on a Google search. And a lot of that rhetoric and the language didn't necessarily represent the experience that I wanted for myself. It was always within stereotypes that was a part of the rhetoric that's used to do the whole fear mongering thing of grooming. And so when approached about, Protect This Kid campaign, I thought about the kid that needed, right, campaigns like this to exist when I transitioned, and they need them to exist now, even as an adult. And as an elder, I'm sure I would hope that something like this had existed. And so it made the perfect sense, as GLAAD is a longtime friend and family of mine. And so what I know is not only are they using, let's say, my experiences or so many others who are involved to help change the narrative in media of what we think about, what protect kids mean. But I think it's most important now more than ever as trans youth rights are being taken, right? And there's these unprecedented amounts of anti-trans bills, right, being introduced into state legislatures, that we remind trans youth, that we remind LGBTQ youth that there is a light at the other side of this darkness, and there's light even in between the darkness. And we got to sometimes reach out for those allies. Sometimes we got to reach out and find those examples that better help us feel connected to our most true, authentic self and form. And so I think that's what Protect This Kid campaign is doing. It's telling kids you're not the problem, you are beautiful. This campaign is changing the conversation, at least, or contributing to it, in saying that we are not what the media is trying to portray us to be. We are not these adults who's trying to groom LGBTQ youth, trans youth. We are, individuals who persevered through the bullying. We persevered through the rejection. We persevered through the homelessness. We persevered through the public humiliation. And what we found was a beautiful community. And it is so important that we remind LGBTQ youth who are, going through their journey now and are becoming the LGBTQ adults, that they know that it's possible. That while there is so many different battles that we'll be up against, the main one is that we stay united, right? Because it's whether we're in a different generation or not, we are the generation that is the most vocal. We are the generation that can create change. And so I know that if a youth is given representation, given a sense of reflection, of resiliency, of perseverance, it will not only continue to fuel what they have, but remind them of what's possible beyond the narratives that we see in media now, which is telling them that they're the problem, when in fact being your most authentic self has always been the solution.
Yeah, and the idea of protecting the children that sort of weaponized against us, ignores things like, as you mentioned, bullying and disproportional suicide rates and homelessness rates, doesn't it?
No, for sure. And I think that, like, when you think about, my journey in particular, I am the youth who was rejected for being trans. I am the youth who engaged in survival sex work. But most importantly, right, what I am is a thriving trans adult. And I've used my experiences in navigating rejection, in navigating survival, as what seems to be somewhat of a model of the conversation, right? In the sense of, this is the reality, this is where you start, but with the right community support, this is where you can end. Because I'm nothing short of what community support should look like, right? In the sense of, it took the community to bring me to where I am today. It took that moment of Laverne seeing me, that moment of Dee Smith seeing me. And unfortunately, at times it took that date to see me, but more importantly, it took the people who serve as allies to me, who wanted to be my champion, who wanted to help me to develop the language and the tools to create the access for me. And so, you know, I think that when we are in a time where we're losing so much access, now more than ever, it's so important to model what support looks like, because I think that we don't know what it looks like in terms of the direct impact when a child is given it in marginalized communities beyond just the donation. And that's what I love that GLAAD is always doing. It's saying that we're not only putting our money where our mouth is, in the sense of that we're, you know, constantly present within media, but we're creating the initiatives and the campaigns that we need to see in media to change the narrative about the ways we're having conversation about trans folks.
Yeah, you mentioned DSMED, so I have to ask you about Kokomo City and what it meant for you to share your story with that beautiful film, and of course then to see the impact that it's had in terms of you know, so many people watching the film in theaters first of all, and now that it's streaming.
For sure. So, you know, when I think about Kokomo City and the entirety of its experience, so from the moment in which, you know, I'm sharing my truth, and my truth is very personal to me, to the moment in which, you know, it becomes something bigger than me, and I'm connected to other women and other trans women. And so I become a part of a family, the Kokomo City family. And what was so liberating for me, you know, initially was because I had this somewhat of a media friends for the Laverne Cox documentary at 18, to had went on and did a number of TED Talks and was very well connected in that sense to, you know, influential figures, LGBTQ influential figures. And there was these moments that showed up for me that we could say I was successful, I was thriving. But the reality is that we as a country, institutions did make that right in some ways, I want to say the most equitable, where my livelihood would have been sustained beyond survival. And I say that in the sense of that, yes, I was great for a gala, but I was never good enough for the job. And so, you know, I find myself in that position with Kokomo City saying, you know, it's time I bear my truth. It's time that people know that, you know, here I am, this person who's not only capable of having these conversations, who are in the room having these conversations, but when you leave, right, and you go home back to your stability, I leave and I go back to survival. And my level of expertise wasn't as valuable as the person who is sitting across from me, you know, whose formal education gave them a title of being called expert, in which they said there was a service to, but oftentimes limit, because what they could do at the organizational level, it could go but so far, right? And so when it came to me having this sense of understanding of how nuanced it is, right, to be at the intersections of not just Black and trans, but being Black, trans, and having moments of what others call success. Because now you're pressured to show up with this image, right? And you're supposed to have all the resources to be able to continue to exist in these communities, when in fact, the reality that so many of us were, you know, thinking we were addressing, but wasn't, which was the inequity that so many trans people, right, have and experience. And so, yeah, my words got me in the room, but what really in this sense got me there wasn't my own money in my pocket. It was the date that I had to sleep with. And so to sum up a bit of what I'm saying is, you know, I had went through all these moments in life where I thought about what will get me to where I want to be, right? And where I want to be in life, for one, is now working as a director on my own project and stuff and producing, is that I go on and help, right, leverage whatever platform has been created for me, and extend that to others. But being reminded about what Kokomo City showed us. While trans women are being celebrated, they're also being murdered. And that was Coco the doll. When you think about what Kokomo City showed us, is that even in a time where trans people are being celebrated, right, one of the main protagonists whose biggest fear is to die that way, right? Or she experienced losing so many friends that way, ultimately lost her life the same way. And so, you know, when you think about even how this ties into the importance of this campaign, Protect This Kid, are we telling LGBTQ youth that it's not okay to be a youth in LGBTQ and it's not okay to be an adult? I don't think that that's the reality, and I don't think that's a message that so many of us know should exist in media, right? Because when I think about how successful Kokomo City is this successful enough to real change communities, where job opportunities will be opened up, right? Where trans women won't have to depend on sex work, where our allies are not seeing this as a guilt trip, but a responsibility, right? Like, because so many of us as trans women and as LGBTQIA plus people, when you living in your adult, you made it past that youth stage, you've already done more than what you can do. It is believe that you are strong enough to take to God. It is to believe that you are deserving enough to exist in this world. And so, I had to be involved not only with the Kokomo City, but with the GLAAD campaign like this, because, if what I believe the media has told me, I'm on borrowed time soon. And so if I am on borrowed time, I must do everything in my power within my time to educate and leave a legacy of what we are and not what the media say we are. And a lot of that has to do with why I choose to do documentary, right? Because that's real. That is my real life. And when you got to meet me in Kokomo City, I don't think anybody can say I was anything short of being real. And so, I think that that's what needs to happen. We need to tell real stories. We need to, not make transitioning glamorous, but a human experience of, showcasing the challenges, but also be a community stand behind and support. It's incredible. And I just want to say thank you for taking out the time to speak to me and to hear my voice and amplify it. It really not only means the world to me, but I hope, you really understand that telling this story, supporting this campaign in particular, is truly going to hopefully help change hearts and minds, because I'm in the middle of a film right now, and I'm literally speaking to people who are in the middle of this country where accessing community isn't something real for them, but losing their rights every other month is. And so, when I think about this campaign and what its goal is, I'm literally at this very moment hearing, a bunch of no's to this project, but I found so many yeses. And, it's because I know that this is a good conversation on paper, but this is a conversation that so many people are willing to go into those communities and create real tangible change for. And so even if it starts with you amplifying Protect This Kid, you've helped to protect another LGBTQ person just by amplifying this campaign. So thank you.